performer or comedian, a guest every time on this show. We're doing it at 3 o'clock today. I was blessed and honored to be part of an interview on Morning Shot. So if you guys don't know that channel, please go check it out. It's very interesting. Ramon, the guy that organizes that YouTube channel, always has thought-provoking topics to talk about, so it's really interesting. Go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description below. It was very nice for him to have me on there. And now I'm ready to do this show, and I'm very excited. I am going to have my first open micer on the show, which I'm very excited to interview and get to know. But first, before I continue, remember, ladies and gentlemen, that you can donate to us. 75% of the proceeds will go to my guest, in this case, my guest now. And the link will be available for the next 24 hours. So even if you're watching this after it's done, you can still donate up until tomorrow, which will be the 16th of April. I think I keep it open until 11:30 in the evening. So please share this. Let people know that they can donate and help a fellow comedian or performer. I'm doing this for all my guests. And I'm so excited to announce this as well. Quicket, which is the system I use to get these donations, has made it super easy now to donate. So I'm going to pop this up very quickly and explain. All you have to do is scan the QR code, and it's not going to ask you for a name. It's not going to ask you for an email. It's not going to ask you for any details. You literally just scan it, and then you donate. It's as simple as that, quick and easy. So easy, guys. So I'm going to leave that on the screen for the entirety of the interview, so people can use that. The link, if you want to use a link, you don't have your phone, you're watching this on your phone, the link is available in the description below. Same situation, just takes you to your browser, and you immediately donate. Doesn't ask you for anything. So please, let people know. Don't be shy to comment and ask us questions during the interview. I am going to introduce our guest now, and He's a very interesting man. I've been chatting to him off before we went live. Very interesting. We're going to talk about all his stuff. And I love his hair, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please, with a thunderous round of applause, we're not going to hear it, but we'll imagine it. Please welcome Professor or Prof Zee. Say hi.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are most welcome. As I was telling you just now, I'm so excited to be interviewing someone who's new to the comedy scene. So let's get right into it. I always like to ask my guests a very important question. Is there anything right now, besides stage, that you are missing during this lockdown? Any cravings of any sort?
What I'm missing at the moment is my hairdresser because I tried my best, but sure, I definitely need a trim. So I think that's right on top of my priority list for when things return to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely a new toothbrush. And I think so. I was only able to get like one of those pack of 6 toothbrushes at the local cafe,
Yeah.
And like the bristles are, well, the whole head of the toothbrush is about that size and about this wide, so it like folds. It feels like I'm brushing like the back of my skull. So yeah, I think those are two priorities for me when we get out of lockdown.
What would be the first thing you go, like, is there any fast food or type of food or maybe a dish that you're really craving now that you can't make at home? What would be the first restaurant or whatever to go to?
Yes, there's absolutely something that comes to mind. We've got a Bangladeshi restaurant right opposite where I stay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 7 meters away. So it won't be much of an outing due to the close proximity, but yeah, definitely a tikka grill.
That sounds really good, though. I mean, oh man, I had Sophie Jones on, and she was talking about Steers chips, and I'm like, oh, now you're talking.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to drive straight from Gulshan to Steers to meet you for some Steers.
Yeah, we'll get one of those extra large ones.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, for those of you that are joining us now, don't forget that you are allowed to comment, you're allowed to ask questions, anything and everything is on the table. So please don't be shy. Also remember that you can donate, and 75% of the proceeds will go to this gentleman here, Professor Zee. Is it Professor or Prof Zee?
Prof Z.
Okay, Prof.
Prof.
But that
Yeah,
is short.
I don't have like actual credentials, so I'm worried about the potential lawsuit. So I just ensure that it's always prof and not professor.
Okay. Why? Let's start with that. Okay, well, no, I'm going to backtrack. Sorry. You are new to the scene. You are an open micer. Tell us about one, why you've now decided to pursue or just expose yourself to stand-up comedy. Why the step, and how has your journey been so far? And how long have you been doing it?
Okay, so I think I'm in it for possibly a year and a half now, maybe a little bit more. Um, but it's been a bit different for me in that I haven't done much open mic comedy. So I won't really consider myself a comedian as such or an open micer. And I think what happened was for quite a while in my field, I've been doing lots of talks and I always try to sort of add a humorous spin to it. And but it was always relative to a specific audience, people that essentially follow what it is that I do in my day job. And then I decided to just sort of branch out and talk about science topics that interest me, that are not necessarily relative to my day job, and tried you know uh, exposing it to an audience that again wasn't directly linked to what it is that I do in my actual field. So more than doing open mics, I've just been doing like these funny talks on things ranging from evolution to quantum physics to cosmology. So that's really been my interaction with the world of comedy. Very different to what actual comedians do. Because being an open micer, I came to realize is very challenging,
Mm.
and it requires an enormous amount of effort. And I certainly don't have the level of commitment that I think it takes to be a comedian, a stand-up comedian, and an open micer. So I really have a lot of respect for them.
Mm.
But that's, I think, a very specialized sort of segment within the world of comedy, and
Yes.
not really one that I consider myself to be part of. Although I do enjoy doing the open mics.
Mm.
But it's very hard to, for example, in 5 minutes do a talk on the creation of the universe when I actually need about 13.7 billion years to make the point.
Exactly. So how many times have you been on the stage roughly in this year and a half year that you've been doing comedy?
I maybe done maybe 15 open mics,
That's not
maybe
bad.
maybe yeah. So like just less than one a month.
Mm.
Because it is great to meet the other comedians and get advice and get tips, and a lot of the guys have been helping me out and
Yes.
so on. Um, and then I've done a total of I think five one-man shows.
Already?
Yeah, the last was Journey to the First Planet at the Fire and Ice Hotel
Oh,
in Cape Town. That
wow.
was cool. A sold out event. So yeah, I'm very was very
How
chuffed with
did
that.
how did that go? Because it's very unusual that a person open micer. See, like now you have a bit of a conundrum because usually in comedy you would be an open micer for at least a year or two, 3 years before you start thinking about doing a one man show because you've built a repertoire, and then you start dabbling into the one man show. You're kind of going the opposite way here, which is why I'm
Yeah.
very curious. How was the response to your one man show, and what was it called?
It was Journey to the First Planet,
Yes, okay, sorry.
and it was great. It was sold out like 2 weeks before the actual event.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it was like one of the best nights of my life. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, so I'm
But
guessing
yeah,
you. I'm sorry. I'm guessing you spoke about your like science stuff during that one man show.
yeah, it was pretty much like just a brief introduction into the world of quantum physics,
Okay.
and like an overview of the creation of the universe, and a quick dash over the evolution of the human species.
Mm, okay.
Um, But then I kind of got sidetracked and ended up spending a lot of time talking about smoking tuck and
That's a massive deviation from your topic, by the way.
yeah, that yeah. So I guess you could say like a brief overview of the creation of the universe through a meth pipe. I think that's how it kind of came out. Um, but yeah, to answer your other question, definitely I've seemed to go in reverse. I started off pretty much doing, like full on shows and then try to work my way back into
Mm,
open miking. And again, I think open miking is it's complicated stuff. I've got a lot of respect for people that do that because you've got 5 minutes to deliver like 100 punches.
mm,
And yeah, you've got to be quick and nimble and
mm.
well prepared.
Exactly. Every now and again, I might interrupt you. I don't mean to be rude. I just like to try and get to the comments as much as possible when people comment. And we have a Nisa uh, Razak. Sorry, I'm terrible with names, guys. So please forgive me. But she says lots of love, guys. So thank you, Anissa, for tuning in and watching. Give this video a like, share it, tell your people. If you have any questions for Prof Z, please uh, let us ask anything, especially about quantum physics. I guess you can talk about that for a while. So tell me, I'm very interested in the science side of you because you earlier were walking around your, I'm guessing, apartment or house or wherever it is you live, and it's very white. Like it looks like you're in the inside of like an umbrella corporation laboratory, or like it's very white.
Yeah.
So I already get the impression that you're a very neat man. You're a very clean man. I mean, you obviously you're well shaven now. Um, and are you a doctor? Are you some kind of physicist or something like that?
So yes, so I am in my lab at the moment. But what I do for a day job is build saltwater aquariums.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I started off doing, and then about 15 years ago, I started developing my own brand, producing basically life support machinery for saltwater aquariums and related medications and pharmaceutics and so on. And yeah, so over the years, I've just built up my own lab where I do my experiments and research and also try and generate a living out of the same space. So that's really been it. Well, there's elements of that. Um, there's certainly elements of marine biology, but the main focus is building up saltwater aquariums as displays. Yeah, absolutely. So that's my prime focus would be coral and sea anemones and those types of things. Starfish. With fish, so they form a part of that ecosystem. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's a very big part of it. Yeah, absolutely. So I done a lot of that in the initial stages, and when I then branched off to developing my own stuff, I focus now more on producing ready-to-go ranges. So the work I produce will go on to resellers, and then they sell on to uh, retail stores and so on, and they get shipped pretty much all around the world now. Well, lucrative in the sense that I've always got airtime and cigarettes. Uh, So, but yeah, probably could have not as sort of high cash generating if I'd gone into a more traditional field
Yeah.
in science. But I love what I do, and it's a blast every day. So that's the trade-off.
Sorry, I just realized that we had a bit of a mic problem on my side, so I just wanted to repeat myself, which the questions you've already answered. I was basically asking him about the aquariums that he makes, some of the videos on YouTube, and I was asking if that's the same, where these organisms come together and people say that the fish does this and the bacteria is good for that, and blah blah blah. And then what was the question I asked you now? I think I asked you, oh, is it a lucrative business, which you just ended? Sorry, I just realized there was a mic problem. Um, okay, so let's move now onto comedy because you have a very interesting background. I've never met. What would you? What profession would you? What was the profession again that you have?
I'm not too sure, but we could say like an aquariums product developer, maybe.
Specialist.
Yeah, somewhere along those lines.
So I've never met an aquarium specialist. I think it's fascinating. I watch those videos on YouTube quite a lot. I think it's beautiful what some of the guys put out there, and it looks so realistic. So I'm going to ask you one more thing about that. Do you have any favorite type of fish?
Um, Fish that are healthy and don't die.
So no goldfish.
I, I like those ones the most because they cause us the least amount of stress, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, any healthy fish that's doing well in a captive environment's a beautiful fish.
Nice. Okay. Well, what's your opinion on the Cape Town Aquarium then? I'm guessing you visit that place quite often, or?
Not really, but but it's a beautiful place to go to. Yeah, it's great to see you know our local species of like predator fish and
Yeah.
all sorts of crazy things that they have there. Yeah, it's a well run and beautiful setup.
Fantastic. All right, so let's get back into comedy. You explained how you explained why you wanted to go in, but tell us about the first time you were ever on stage. Tell us that journey from the moment you started to write to the moment you were on stage and you actually did it. How did you feel?
So that happened quite quickly. I was fortunate enough to meet the owner of Samoka. I'm not sure if you know Samoka events. They do all the big comedy stuff. And we kind of became friends. And one day in passing, I mentioned to the owner of Samoka, Mo, that I always wanted to do a one-man show. And like as a joke, he said, "Okay, cool. You know what? I'll give you the space, and you can do your show." So up until that point, I'd never held a mic. I'd never done like actual comedy. And then 2 weeks later, I went back to him and I said, "Okay, I wrote my show. So like, when can we do this thing?" And he thought I was joking, but I had actually. And then he realized I was being serious, and he basically let me use their space, but before one of their actual shows. And so he said, well, there's a stage, there's sound, there's lighting, you know, invite some friends and see how it goes. And, you know, I messaged some friends and some family and some people that were following my day job work. And we put a fairly good audience together and I went on stage. And again, I've never held a mic before and it just went really well. And then Mo was a big encouragement, and he was like, "Dude, you know what? I can't believe you like, you know, you actually pulled this thing off, and perhaps it's something you should give an actual, you know, give it a go."
Mm,
And he was instrumental in pushing me along, giving me the mic to open for some like big names in the country, um, and, and that's pretty much how I started. And then the recommendation was that I hit the open mic scene.
mm,
Um, you know, so I've sort of just been playing those stages since. But it was great. And yeah, after doing it, which was sort of like something I had on my bucket list, I thought, okay, maybe it's not just a once off calling. Maybe I should give it a go. So
mm.
yeah, it's been incredible. Meet lots of interesting, funny people.
Yeah.
Some people that aren't actually that funny, but they're interesting anyway. Like they're funny on stage,
Yeah.
but like off stage, you know, people think comedians are like just like funny people. I've come to discover some comedians aren't funny
No.
like off stage. They hilarious on stage,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily translate after.
Yeah, I think I'm more or less one of those comedians. Like, I on stage, I feel more at home, if I can put it that way. I feel like I can come out of my shell. I love being on that stage and just being myself to some extent. But off stage, of course, like I have my funny moments, but it's not like, for example, Robin Williams. Robin Williams was always on, if I can put it that way. He was always cracking jokes, no matter whether he was on stage, whether he was an interview, at home, just in life. Always, always cracking jokes. It's so much energy to do that. I always feel once I'm done with the stage, I don't want to say drained, but it's like a part of me was left on there, and I do try and entertain off stage. Obviously, I want to be funny. I want people to like me, but yeah, I'm not always on like some of the guys are, and kudos to them who are. That's just, I
Yeah.
guess, their personality. Like they're always the class clown and always on, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a very interesting story, because again, it's so different to how normally you do things in the industry. For those of you who don't know, you're supposed to do open mic night. You do your 5 minutes, then you grow that 5 minutes, and you climb the ladder. This guy really went in the opposite direction. Let's just do a 1 hour show to start out with, which is kudos. I didn't know that, and that is fantastic. Much more respect towards you, or for you, that you did that, because I mean it's daunting to do 5 minutes. It's nerve wracking for your first time to do even 5 minutes. So to stand on stage for a whole hour or half an hour, 45 minutes, however long that was, and really be thrown into the deep end, well done. And to hear that it was a good show, well done. Because sometimes comedians who pursue that quite early in their career, sometimes it fails. And by the sounds of it, you did well. So keep going, keep doing it. I just have a comment here from Facebook. Julian Tsepu. I'm trying to figure out why this is. Just give me a second. I want to find out why this is so. Oh, that's why. There we go. Um, Julian Tsepu, who's a friend of mine. Random question. As a comedian, which stage platform to perform at is every stand up comedian's dream, peak to reach? Or is it about the number of audience members? Just dotting down some ambitious goals. Okay, so I think what he's trying to say, or what he's saying in a nutshell, is which stage is every comedian's dream to be on? Or is it the number, do comedians strive to hit like that big number of audiences? And I'll let you answer, and then I'll give my opinion on that.
Okay, so from what I've seen in the short time that I've been on the comedy scene, there are different comedy clubs for open micers, and they seem to shift and depending on what's happening. But then I think like the big one for many aspiring comedians would be a Cape Town Comedy Club at the V&A Waterfront, and then I think like the big premium stage would be the Samoka events. Um, and in terms of numbers, I'm not sure what other comedians are like, if there's a particular stage, or if they'd rather exchange that for a larger audience. But I think it's elements of all of the above. For myself, I would say the stage you want to go for is the stage that you design and come up with an idea and build that idea, because I think that's what I did. I just thought of my own thing,
Yeah.
and just followed my gut. And I think it's critically important to follow the traditional sort of trajectory of an aspiring comedian. But I also think you have to follow your gut and introduce your own vibes, And if that's hosting your own show, or hiring a venue yourself and so on, I think comedians should trust their gut feel as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think You're right. What you said at the end there was totally right. It is a personal. You as a comedian, you gotta set your own personal goals. Every comedian will have different ambitions, different goals. Some comedians really do want to perform to the largest crowd possible. I know Steve Martin, Dane Cook, Kevin Hart are some of the guys that have the biggest records of performing in front of a large audience. Uh, I think Kevin Hart holds the record for the most amount of gigs done in a world tour. I could stand under correction for that. I know there's been a few comedians now that have either broken that or are close to breaking it. Um, and that's the thing. They say, oh, I wanna be the guy that just tours everywhere, goes everywhere, and I want to perform on as many stages as possible. That's my goal as a comedian. Go ahead. If your goal as a comedian is to be on Cape Town Comedy Club, nothing wrong with that. To headline there, to host there, that's your ambition. It's your choice. If your goal is to be on TV, that's your ambition. That's your goal. So it really, and at the end of the day, if you're on TV, that's the most amount of audiences you're gonna have. So yeah, that answers that part of the
Can
question.
I just add something briefly to that, Joe?
Yeah.
So, to the person that posted that question, I'd also want to add that I think the the best the best possible return would be when you leave the stage and you feel like it's been the best night of your life,
Yeah.
whether you played 2 minutes or 146.
Yeah.
And I think the best audience to play to is an audience that feels that you left them with something to think about,
Yes.
or you added a bit of value to their week, whether it was 5 people in the audience or 500.
Yes. Which ties into to what the first half of his question, where he said, as a comedian, which stage platform to perform on is every stand-up comedian's dream. Um, you again, it depends on the gig. It depends on your ambitions. But for me personally, it's Comedy Central. That's the platform I dream of to be on more than anything else. So I treat every gig I do as a stepping stone towards that because I'm perfecting my craft. And then in terms of audience members, I'm not very big on the audience number thing. Like, I don't care how many audiences are in the room. I think that's my own personal thing. Obviously, I love a full room. Don't get me wrong. I mean, full rooms are awesome, but a full room of 40 people is just as enjoyable as a full room of 300 people. I've performed in both instances, so as long as you're good at what you do, you shouldn't have a problem. And but I know that some comedians, they do think of that. They're like, I want 1,000. I want to fill up a stadium of 20,000. I want to perform, and that's fine. That's not my ambition. My ambition is Comedy Central. But thank you, Julian, for that comment, and I hope that helps. Yeah, just step on the stage, work on your craft, get to work on that, and soon you'll be performing in front of a lot of people. But keep those questions coming in, guys. Keep those comments coming in. That was a very, very good question, I think. So, when was the last time you were on stage, Prof Zee?
Well, I done the journey to First Planet. It was on the 9th of Feb,
Mm-hmm.
and I done two, like, sort of open mic sets after. I think end of Feb, beginning of March,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course now with the lockdown, everything's come to a grinding halt.
Yeah.
I was planning on doing another show in June, um, divorce DNA. That's sort of the concept.
Nice. Okay.
But now I'm not too sure as to how things will proceed with
Mm.
the lockdown and the corona
Mm.
reality that is challenging all of us.
Yes.
Um, but I'm set on doing it. So I think if it's not going to happen in an actual comedy venue, then perhaps we do it online,
Mm.
and people can just tune in and watch it.
I was actually going to ask you, are you planning on, I don't know if you recorded your one man shows, but would you put any of them on YouTube for people to watch?
Um, well, it wasn't really my intention at this. Well, up until the advent of Corona 19, but perhaps. perhaps I'm sorry about that. Perhaps something I could consider if lockdown is going to be extended beyond an additional 14 days.
Yeah, well, I would like to watch it. It sounds super interesting. Okay, so I was asked a kind of a cool question on my interview this morning, and I would like to get your input on it. Um, do you think that what's happening now in the world, with the whole lockdown and stuff like that, do you think, as a young comedian, that this will change the future of comedy, stand-up comedy as we know it? Do you think it's going to have an impact?
Sure. That's a tricky one because I think to a large extent, like the global population of human beings are going through something that, at least in our current state, we haven't gone through before. Um, and I'm not quite sure how it's affected populations in the past. Hi, are you there? Um, but I think that overall our nature is to be so social. Are you there? Our nature is to be social, and I think our nature is to interact and engage with each other. Um, so again, I'm not sure. Are people going to be hesitant to come out and sit in a crowded room forever or for a very long time to come? Will we adapt to a more online or cyber environment? Um, but I think people often we split up without realizing into different camps. So
Yeah.
there might be those that will be, you know, over eager to get back out and get in a crowded room with friends and socialize and listen to comedy. And there might just be some people that don't ever want to go into a crowded place again.
Yeah.
But I think overall we will all adapt and we'll find new medium and new ways of, achieving a means to our social ends.
Absolutely. That's basically what I said as well. It's hard to tell. I think that the comedy industry is changing to some degree. Some of us are experimenting with YouTube and how to maybe merge the two. We're just trying to remain as relevant as possible during this time, so that we're not forgotten, so to speak. I do have another comment from Anissa saying a good suggestion, Prof Z, and she's referring to adding your comedy to YouTube. It seems like you have a fan already that wants to see it. Thank you, Anissa. Well, maybe he will. Well, I'll see. Look, Prof, if you ever do release your stuff on YouTube, just send me a link, and I will post it at the bottom of this video on YouTube so that anybody in the future who's watching it can go to it, and hopefully you'll get some more views from that. Um, Cool. So again, guys, don't be shy to ask some questions and ask. Remember, this guy's only been doing comedy for a year, but he's already had a one man show, which is again outstanding. I don't know. It's very weird for me. I've never. I've never. It almost never happens. But tell us a bit more about why. Okay, so how did you come up with the name Prof Z? I'm guessing it's because you, like you said, you want to be, you don't want to get in trouble, so you call yourself prof with instead of professor. But and I'm guessing that the Z is because of your actual name.
Yeah, yeah. So it's actually a nickname that I picked up in my day job because I've just been doing it for a really long time. Because I started out quite young in the industry, and yeah, so I ended up with the nickname Prof Z. And when I started doing comedy, I just moved into comedy with that same nickname. you know. Um, and yeah, I think it goes with the character that I play on stage as well. The nutty, drug, sort of overdosed, wacko prof, rambling on about the mechanics of the universe and the nature of human beings. So it just worked, and I've stuck with it. And yeah, that's sort of the angle.
So you are kind of the crazy doctor on stage, so to speak. Like what's that character from Back to the Future. What's Doc?
Yeah. Like
That
Doc on six
yes, yeah.
on 600, like Doc on 600 milligrams of MDMA. Yeah, I think that's a fair, a fair comparison or analogy. Yeah.
But that's cool. That's great. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
For now, I'm 40,
For now, I'm
and
40.
in October I click over to 41, and I'm quite worried because apparently, like your risk of getting really ill on corona increases at 40. So I'm not sure, am I safe till 40, or does the problem kick in when I'm 41? So yeah.
Yeah, that is a bit of a tricky one. But keep us updated. Now, the reason why I ask your age is because I do have a bit of jealousy when it comes to guys who like it's a weird thing because guys of your age and older, when they start comedy, and there's a few of them, they're always like, "Oh, but I'm too old to get into the game," and blah blah. Blah. And I'm like, no, it's like the best time. It's the best time to get into the game when you're 40 and above. I think because you have so many stories. Like the stories are endless. The life that you've lived, whatever your background is, where you come from, if you have a family, kids stories, just life. You've lived a decent amount of your life already, and I think the amount of stories that can come out of that is really gold. And I'm jealous. I'm jealous because you have those stories. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that you're definitely never too old to start comedy,
Mm.
but there are certain things in life I've come to discover that you can be too old for. Um, I was recently out looking for a new tracksuit pants, and there was this like really attractive, I'll say, sales person, and I said like, I'm looking for the track pants, and I see you've got quite like a big selection and different styles, and can you talk me through them? And the salesperson then goes through the different cuts and variations, and we end up at the nappy pants cut. So I say like, what's a nappy pants? And the person explains, no, well, it's tapered at the bottom, but it's kind of loose around the top, and it hangs, like at the groin area. So I say, well, that sounds cool. Maybe I should go for the nappy pants design then. And the salesperson looks at me, who I was like, very much perving over, looks at me and says, I don't think it's for an elderly gentleman like yourself.
Ah.
And so, yeah, the point is, I think some things we get too old for, like happy pants. But for comedy, I don't think you can be too old to start comedy.
Did you buy the pants?
No, I was heartbroken. I just went home and cried my pillow wet.
Shame, man. And that kills the game right there. That's a good joke there. You should bring that to the stage. It's a good story. But you see, it's stuff like that. And I agree with you. You're never too old to do comedy. I think again, I think the older you are, the better you're probably gonna be. Because again, of all these stories like that, you start seeing. I think at the age of 40 and above, you start seeing the world in a different way. You're more mature. And well, I've met some immature 40-year-olds, but um, but I mean, like, there's a level of wisdom that us younger folk don't have, and you're more critical of the world, and you're also more honest. I find that people at the age of 40 are definitely a lot more honest, and I think that goes very well and gels very well with comedy. So yeah, you're right. You're never too old to try comedy, and I'm glad you did. Um, tell us, have what's is there any topic that you won't talk about that you try and steer away from?
Well, I try and steer away from anything that's could be considered well that might offend people. So I don't like comedy that just stirs people in the wrong way. You know, um, yeah, I try not to use comedy as a way to upset people or frustrate them or criticize them. Um, I don't do like politics because I just don't follow politics anyways. I don't know anything about politics, so I tend to stay away from that as well. just because I don't know how it works and what it's all about. And yeah, just try and do like clean comedy. It's that's sort of my goal. I try and stick to science, and I try and stick to my life experiences, and just use like simple things to explain scientific concepts.
So you are like a full-on scientist. Like do you like doing like I know a few. My one friend in the States is a what's the word I'm looking for? A neurobiologist. At least that's what he's doing his master's now in that, which is
Wow.
crazy. And he loves doing equations. Are you one of those guys?
No, I don't think I love doing equations. I don't think anybody does.
He does.
And well, I must tell you, I think it's a lot of crap, and I think many of those scientists they just bluff us, because I've spent time with equations and they don't add up. They just write all sorts of nonsense there, and then they make us believe that they're highly intelligent. I once saw a scientific equation that had a McDonald's sign, you know. So
Okay.
they're obviously bluffing us, and then they just look all intelligent, and they stroke their beards, and we feel like we're stupid and we don't know what's happening. And you just look out, you'll see little musical symbols and all sorts of shit, because they know nobody's going to check it. So yeah, don't let that fool you. It doesn't fool me anymore.
Man, if my friend's watching this, yeah, comment and let me know. Oh man, that's gonna be funny. Okay, cool. So, as a person who makes aquariums and stuff like that, is there anywhere that you can like how do I put this? Sorry, I'm trying to formulate the question here because yeah. So, do you have like in comedy we were just speaking about this like ambitions and stuff like that. Is there an ambition for you in that field? Like, do you want to build the biggest aquarium known to man? That kind of thing.
Well, my goal is to have like 14 global distributors.
Wow.
Um, Even 12. I'd be happy with 12.
Two less.
And and yeah, to have my products traded globally, to be
Mm,
able to walk into an aquarium store in any country really, and
mm.
be able to find products designed by Prof Zee. I think that would be my goal.
I think if you were to pursue that, you could. This is just me. Suggest maybe you've already thought about it. I don't know. If document, and obviously, I guess there's some things that are industry secrets. But if, like I said, I've seen a lot of this on YouTube. So if you can start a YouTube channel where you tell people and show people how to build aquariums the right way, in your own way, the way you like to, and then you can like slowly get into that market of merchandising your own stuff. Because I don't know if you know this guy, Ant Canada. He's
No.
on YouTube and he's all about ants. That's his thing. Like it's anything and everything to do with ants. That's what he's doing. But he's got like aquariums, not aquariums. Sorry, he's got ant farms all over in this one room. Like I kid you not, he's got like 10 species or something, and it's very fascinating, interesting stuff. Very fascinating. Go check it out because I think if you were to maybe do that in the South African market, that would be your road to selling your product out there to the world because that's what he does. He has all these ant farms branded by his brand. He's selling it across the world on Amazon and stuff like that. The guy's huge. And I don't know, maybe that will spark some ideas.
Yeah, he definitely sounds like he's got it waxed down.
Absolutely. So yeah, maybe that's the way you can go. Do you? This is just me. You probably don't know, but I'll really want. I'm curious because you're kind of a scientist. Do you know how to build a bomb? And I'm probably gonna get into
No, I
trouble.
don't. I don't. I don't.
That was very
No
quick.
bomb. No, no, no. Only bomb fish tanks. No bomb. Not
Uh,
me.
oh man, just can
My
you?
first name is Mohammed, but I don't know anything about bombs. Nothing.
So where are you from?
where am I from?
Yeah. Where were you born?
I stay in Rylands in Athlone in Cape Town.
Okay. But where were you
Yeah,
born?
and there's no bombs here.
Where were you born?
Yeah, in Cape Town. In
Okay.
Cape Town. My dad was originally from Johannesburg,
Okay.
and he moved here in his early 20s. Met my mom, who was Cape Townian, and I've pretty much just spent my life here.
Okay.
I haven't traveled much. The furthest I've been, well, on the two furthest most points has been the waterfront and Gordon's Bay. People always
Yeah.
laugh when I say that. But I'm being honest.
At least you didn't say Robben Island. I'm starting to get really tired of that joke when like, sometimes people ask me, oh, where else have you been? And I'll be like, oh, Spain, England, stuff like that. And then they're like, yeah, I've been overseas. I've been to Robben Island. I hate that joke now. It was funny the first time I ever heard it. And now everyone's talking. I just, please, just, no.
Yeah.
I can't. Uh, no, I mean, like, hey, at least you got out of the house. You know, you saw Gordon's Bay. I
Well, in
mean,
today's times, I mean, going from the waterfront to Gordon's Bay is a big thing.
exactly. You got to see the ocean.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to see tourists. You know what they're like. Uh, and did you go to
Yeah.
the waterfront to go to the aquarium? Is that why you went?
No, funnily enough, I went there because I was wanting chips, steers chips.
Why would you go to? Okay, I don't know.
Because apparently they make the best steers chips.
Is it okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll confirm that once the lockdown is
They
over.
put in extra effort for the tourists, you know.
Hey, that's actually a fair point. Actually, that could be true. Okay, I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna travel all the way from Brackenfell to the waterfront, which is about a 30-minute drive. On
Because
a
if I go to the steers in my area here on the Cape Flats and I complain about the chips, they'll just tell me not to come back and rather go to the Bangladeshi restaurant in the future.
yeah, that sounds that. They're cheeky, man.
Yeah.
Telling their own customers to go somewhere else. Okay. Um, Yeah, so is there anything that you have noticed about the comedy industry so far that is weird to you? That you maybe, because I know that a lot of young comedians, they have a certain perception of the comedy industry. They think it's all like rock star lifestyle, some of them, and all that. And has there anything come out that is a bit disappointing that maybe broke the glass, so to speak? Like, oh man, I didn't know it was really like that. Is there anything like that that you can remember?
Well, for me, it definitely hasn't been anything rock star. Nobody's asked me out on a date. Nobody's come to me for my number after a set or a show. So I think that's been the worst. People like hardly recognize me when I'm out. Maybe like one lady sort of noticed me in Checkers. Um, that was about it. So I guess yeah, that's been a bit sad. That's the one thing that's let me down. Um, you know, and yeah, I think one thing that I've also picked up is that I think a lot of the the guys that are starting out, they place too much restrictions on themselves. You know, they look at the comedy industry and they kind of get a sense that it's limiting them here and it's limiting them there and it's forcing them to do this and it's forcing them to do that. But there are no limitations, no restrictions. There's no sort of like international board of comedians or senior comedian council. You can't be struck off the roll of comedians and, you know, banned from practicing.
Mm,
So I think the young guys again need to follow their gut and carve their own path, you know,
mm.
um, and yeah, sort of follow what their gut feel is telling them to do, and not place all these restrictions and limitations that they often just assume the industry is expecting from them because it's not, you know.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on these restrictions? Do you mean in the terms of the topics they're talking about or the way in which they climb to fame?
I think the way in which the way in which they progress. you
Okay.
know. So, for example, I've spoken to a lot of guys starting out, and they say, "Well, I'll play open mic for like 2 years before I do a one-man show." Um, why not just do a one-man show anyways? You
Mm.
know, um, and they feel like they have to play the same 5 minute set over and over until they perfect it. Why not play 10 different 15-minute sets,
Mm. Yeah.
um, and enjoy it, and have fun doing it, as opposed to just doing what you think it is that you need to be doing,
Yeah.
whether
Well,
you like it or not. I mean,
yeah.
I've met open micers that have played the same 5 minute set in excess of 200 times a year.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not sure that it absolutely has to be that way.
Well, I agree with you and disagree with you at the same time. Let me explain. So you're right. There is no rule book to being a stand-up comedian. There isn't, but there is a wall that you will eventually hit if you try and go against the grain. So, for example, you were lucky to meet Mo, and he gave you that opportunity to do a one-man show. You were very lucky that that happened. But for most of us, like if a new guy comes on the scene, I've never heard of him. Let's say you and I didn't meet here today, and I didn't have this chat with you. I've never met you before, and you come up to me and say, "Oh, I did a one-man show, and I would like to do it at one of your venues." I would tell you no because I've never heard of Prof Zee. I don't know what you do. I need to see it. I've never even seen you on stage because there's a standard that has to be met. And if you don't meet that standard, it's like Cape Town Comedy Club. If you don't meet their standard of headlining slot, you're not going to get headlining. And it doesn't matter how funny you are in some cases. Um, it's they know their target markets, and if you don't fit that target market to a certain degree, I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying this, but what I'm trying to say is that they have a way that they run their show, and you've got to meet that standard. For the most part, it is done that way to push you to bring out the best of you as a comedian because they want the best on their stage. And there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not I'm not bashing it. I'm not disagreeing with it. It's their venue. They can run it however they want. And at the end of the day, they're the only game in town and they can run it that way. And good for them because that is their product, the best of the best. So you have to be the best of the best. Whatever rules apply to that, you got to adhere to. So I want to make that very clear. I'm not bashing Cape Town Comedy Club. I respect them heavily. But it's those kind of walls that you can't just go to Cape Town Comedy Club and be like, oh, I have a one man show, let me do it. So for you to say, oh, guys, just go and do 15 minutes, it's not that easy. And I know that some open micers who are watching this might, that's the first thing they would have thought of. Like, yeah, but it's not that easy. Like, there's guys that we go and approach to do 5 minutes and they won't even let them on. The industry has a way of uh, keeping you in your place, so to speak, and making sure that you follow a certain I don't want to say rule because it's not rules. It's just a standard that you have to follow, climb the ladder, stuff like that. Which is why I say you're very fortunate and very lucky to have that opportunity. And again, there's nothing wrong. You're right. Now this is where I agree with you to some extent. Where take me, my career for example. I'm not on the scene all the time. I'm not at Armchair every night. I'm not at Trenchtown every night. I'm not at most of the scene places every week, week in, week out, every day, all that stuff. But, and I haven't done Grahamstown. I haven't done anything at the Baxter. I haven't done anything at Artscape. And yet, I've got a TV deal. Usually that's how it works for any comedian. They need to climb the ladder. They need to do Cape Town Comedy Club. They need to go in Grahamstown. They need to go Baxter, and then they'll eventually get their TV deal. I didn't do that. I did it my own way. I was fortunate. I'm not going to lie. Just like you, I was lucky that someone in the audience had a pull in TV. Basically, he knew a TV production. He liked me, and they're like, "Cool. If you have a one man show, let's do it." So I was very fortunate. It's that old saying, "You never know who's in the audience." So I was fortunate in that regard. So yes, you can pave your own way in comedy, but there are walls. You're lucky. Some of it's luck, some of it's hard work. And so I'm not trying to say that you're wrong. I'm just saying that for some comics, they're not as lucky and they have to put in that extra effort. So don't let this discourage you, though. at the end of the day, I always go back to this quote from Bill Burr, which he said in an interview once. The job of a comedian is to make people laugh. If you're making people laugh, you have done your job. And if it's better, if you uh, make the if you kill a knight and you kill it better than the guy after you, you've done an even greater job, and nobody can ignore you. So keep being funny until they notice you. That is the best quote I've ever heard from a comedian, established comedian, and it is so true. At the end of the day, if you're funny, you'll get all the time, you'll get all the stage time. You might have some hurdles to overcome, but you can't be ignored. And I think that's sorry, I went on a bit of a
No, no, that's all 100%. I agree with you fully. And I certainly not taking away or arguing on any of your points. Um, but while there is, I believe, a need for sort of the traditional,
Mm.
um, I don't think that takes away from comedians having to shy away from their gut feel.
No, of course.
So, two things. My business mentor always said that the harder you work, the luckier you seem to become. So, I mean, luck can often be interpreted as a function of your commitment,
Mm.
and I believe, especially to your gut feel and to what your creative sort of compass is steering you towards, the
Yes.
direction it's steering you towards.
Yes.
So, for example, I didn't want to do 5 minute sets. I wanted to do funny talks that are anywhere between 45 and 90 minutes.
Mm.
And I had the issues that you described. People said, well, we don't know you. We can't give you that sort of, access to space and so on. So I built my own stage and I got my own comedy room together, and all the shows have been sold out.
Mm.
Um, and so it's not just the one show that I've done. I've done a few over the past year and a half,
Mm.
and they've all been sold out.
Mm.
And I've invited other comedians to play alongside me, and they've had an awesome time, and they all got paid simply because I was willing to try something different. Something that what I refer to as a parallel system.
Mm.
So you have that traditional system that sits here, and it follows specific rules, and you've got to toe the line, etc. But there's nothing stopping you from doing
Mm.
a system that sits parallel to that.
Yeah.
It might not attract the same audience. Uh, it could very well be completely separate. There's no interference or uh, friction between the two, but you just try something totally different.
Yes.
Um, so I think again, there's always space to
Yeah.
follow your gut and try something new.
Absolutely. Well, that's why I say I agree with you and I disagree with you. So, I definitely agree that every artist should be brazen, should be brave, and put themselves out there. There are instances in the industry where we've heard of people that maybe did it a bit too early, and tried to do a one-man show and it bombed heavily. I know I'm not going to mention his name, and I'm very sad that he doesn't do comedy anymore because he had a lot of potential. He was on Cape Town Comedy Club. He had just gotten an open mic slot there. He was an elder gentleman. He was a doctor, and that's all I'm going to describe about him. The comedy industry will know who I'm talking about, who were around at that time. And unfortunately, he did a one-man show at Grahamstown, and it bombed heavily. And he hasn't been on stage ever since. And that's why I say, like, you're right, be brazen, be brave, but be careful with how you do it, is what I'm trying to say. Like, if you are going to do a one-man show, just make sure it's funny. Just make sure it's not gonna bite you in the ass, because unfortunately, what happened with that comedian that I'm talking about, it hurt him so much. And I remember speaking to him after it happened because I said, I contacted him. I said, "Are you okay? I'd like to book you again. Like, don't let this bring you down. You got to get back on that horse." And he was just like, "Nah." He was so embarrassed, so distraught that he's never been on the scene again, and it was really, really sad to see him stop, because he did have a lot of potential. And so that's my advice on that front. I agree with you. Guys should try and go against the grain, and that's gonna happen. Goliaths wrote their own journey, and it's worked out for them great. A lot of comedians are writing their own journey, and it's worked out for them great. So definitely do it. I'm not against going against the grain. I'm just saying if you do, know that your climb is going to be difficult with some obstacles, but it's not impossible. And just keep doing it. And that's the trick. Keep doing it. Don't. It's like acting. When you go for castings and stuff, you're gonna hear 1,000 no's before you hear yes. It's the same thing. Just keep going. Go back to that blueprint of your material and rewrite and learn and absorb. It's like dying. If you die, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a shit comedian. And I know some people may disagree with me. I've seen, I have seen people and comedians who their beginning of the career they used to just go to the stage armchair night and night like almost every time and die, but eventually they learned and they got the hang of it, and that's a lot of people always ask me like, oh, how do you handle death? You learn from it. Don't be sour, don't be upset, learn from it. You did something wrong that night, find out what you did wrong, adapt, learn. That's the best way you can handle with death on stage. So yeah, I again I agree with you on that point, and this is actually gets me very passionate, as you can see, because that's I do believe in offering a spot for anyone and everyone. I used to do it. I used to run open mic nights. I love open mic nights. I would let anyone be on the stage. I mean, funny story, Anklas and Stellenbosch, we used to do open mic nights there. There was a guy, I kid you not, Prof Z, I kid you not. This was his creative decision. He went on stage in just a towel. I kid you not. I'm not. I wish I was making this up. You can't make this stuff up. And he was wet, which was also weird. Like he was, it looked like he just came out of the shower and he had just had a towel around him. And his first line was, "The aliens gave me back," which I thought was hilarious. He captivated the audience by going on stage naked in a towel. He had everyone's attention, and that first line was gold. Unfortunately, he stole some material from Mitch Hedberg, which then we couldn't have him back. That's a big no-no in the comedy industry. But yeah, I mean everyone has their own creative direction. I'm just saying, be careful with how you do it and how you deliver it.
No, no, for sure.
So I see that we have approached our 1 hour mark. What I usually do is I give my guest an opportunity to give some final words. You can tell people where they can find you. Send me links if you have any, and I will put it in the description below. It has been, and don't go anywhere. I'll talk to you after I go offline.
Okay.
It has been a real pleasure talking to you. You are a fascinating man. I have much respect for you as a comedian, and I want to say, don't stop. As soon as this lockdown is over, please go back, do as many open mic nights as you can, and you can approach me. By the way, I will give you a slot at one of my shows. Now that I've gotten to know who you are, I do believe that I would love to give you that opportunity to be on my stage. So do keep in contact with me. Do you have any final thing to say to our audience?
Well, if people want to get hold of me, they check out Prof Z on Facebook and Instagram. That's probably the best way to check out what I'm up to. Prof Z, PROFZEE, Facebook and Instagram. And I should invest into YouTube. So thank you for reminding me about that, Joe, because that's something I've neglected. So I really appreciate all the good tips. Um, and yeah, to people that are on the comedy scene, while aspiring to make a space for themselves on the comedy scene, just follow your gut and do the things as Altaf Parker, a comedian in Cape Town who I always admire, as he says, just do the things. I think that sums it up. Yeah, and follow your gut and stay creative and stay hardworking and stay committed.
Cool. Thank you so much, Prof Z. Sorry, saying thank you so much for being on my show. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that was Prof Z, a It's weird to even say newbie now because he's done so many one-man shows. It's weird. I'm not used to a comedian who's done so many one-man shows and yet is still regarded as an open micer. It's a very weird position to be in, but he's a comedian. In my eyes, if you've done a one-man show, you are a comedian. So whether he's open mic or headliner, that's debatable, but he's a comedian. So please go check him out. I will leave links in the description once he sends it to me. I'll put it in the description. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, once again, please donate. 75% of the proceeds go to Prof Zee. The link will be available for the next 24 hours at least. So if you're watching this after the fact, please donate. If you're watching this and you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel. I'm interviewing a whole lot more comedians in the coming weeks. I have tonight a very interesting chat with Venner Weber. It's a new show, Let's Talk, where we're going to talk about topics that are happening now. We're going to make you think. We're going to make you wonder about the world. I wouldn't say that you have to put your tinfoil hat on, but in maybe some shows you might have to. I don't know. We'll see how this one goes. The last one we did was very successful. If you want some thought-provoking topics, tune in. And then tomorrow evening, I have Yugurika Nkese, who is a Cape Town, Johannesburg comedian. He does both. Very extremely funny guy. He's recently been in a few commercials. You may have seen him on TV or even YouTube if you service YouTube a lot. So he's going to be on the show tomorrow night. Then next week, I'm having Rolf and Buren on the show on Monday. So please tune into that one. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. So I'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. for the Let's Talk episode. Please, guys, don't forget to donate. Link in the description or here. Again, it's Quicket, yes, but you will not be asked for any details. It's literally scan or click on the link and you just pay. No number, no email, no nothing. And thank you guys so much. Please leave a like, please subscribe, and I'll see you tonight. Cheers.